Hey everyone, welcome back to Show. Today I am joined by someone who is truly redefining how we measure creative performance. Ashley, founder of Deliver AI Solution. Ashley and her team have been at the front end of measure shift, moving from channel first to content first measurement with something they call the content mix model. We are diving into what that means, how it works, and why it's helping brands see up to 25% ROI by finally measuring what really matters. The content itself. Ashley, it's so great to have you here. Welcome to the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here to discuss the content mix model and what I believe is the future of marketing measurement.
So, Ashley, what led to the creation of the content mix modeling? What gap did you see in traditional attribution model that made you say this has to change?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, the more I dug into how MMMs actually worked and compared it to what my clients actually needed, it became very clear to me that there were major fundamental and foundational flaws to the way we attribute media today. I like to say attribution is dead. It's delayed, expensive, archaic, and dysfunctional. So, starting with delayed and expensive, just a couple of weeks ago, I had a call with one of the largest retailers in the United States. And that individual told me we pay seven figures annually for our MMM and we get the results 3 months after our quarter closes. He said, we sit through the presentation, we nod along, and we leave shaking our heads. So if that doesn't articulate delay and expense of current models, I really don't know what does. Next is archaic. So MMMs are really built for what I call the Seinfeld era, when media consumption was very simple. You had one channel, one network, one format, and one device, and even one time slot. Today, we live in what I call the Joe Rogan era. We have multiple channels, multiple networks, multiple formats, multiple devices, and all of these things can be accessed on demand or all at once. So your audience is really everywhere. They're watching YouTube while they're scrolling TikTok, streaming Spotify, but the measurement methodology that is largely used today is really designed for an era that existed in the past. And lastly, dysfunctional. So
Right.
these models have huge gaps in them around creative assessment, which is the single biggest driver of performance, according to all the models I've run in my 15-year career. Secondly, they largely ignore chunks of media. So radio, which is actually the largest media consumption in the US, that is largely ignored. Additionally, emerging media like podcasts, that is largely or underrepresented. Function is really represented by either the lack of interest or willingness to evolve these models. And I really saw this firsthand. Most recently, I was working with podcasting and evolving that measurement capability. And we brought those new capabilities to a variety of MMMs. And I was told by multiple MMM companies, wow, this is amazing data, but if we use this, we're going to have to update our model. And we don't really want to do that. So I'm a data scientist, and that completely blew my mind because the whole point of creating these models is to constantly learn and adapt. But
Right.
it became obvious that these systems have become so rigid, so bureaucratic that they're not even accepting groundbreaking data when the opportunity arises. So those things together is what made me say, this is a foundational and fundamental problem, and we don't need another patch on this old model. We need a new system altogether,
Right.
something that will measure the content itself across every channel and in real time.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. The way things changing these days, users are on the multiple devices. They are on the tablet, mobile, YouTube, Instagram. They are into Reddit, Twitter, and it's become really important to measure and track all the content and provide companies with the right set of data to target their audience.
Exactly right. Yes.
Yeah. So help us understand most brands still measure channels, not content. So why do you think the industry stayed stuck in the channel first measurement for so long? And what's the real cost of that mindset?
Yeah, this is such a great question. And if you zoom out and look at how media has evolved over time, it's actually very clear how we ended up in this channel first world and why we've been stuck here. So, in the 1920s, we really had just newspapers and radio. 30
Right.
years later came television. Then in the 1990s, we got the internet. So companies started creating their own websites. We got Google search. Then it started to accelerate. In the 2000s, we got Facebook, YouTube, Twitter. And then in the 2010s, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, all of which redefined how people consume content. So as each channel emerged, new specialists were spun up to basically engage with these channels. You had agencies that were created, social media agencies, podcast agencies. Now we have influencer agencies, all of which have their own dashboards, their own data, their own KPIs. And the easiest and largely only way to measure success is through the numbers that the platform itself provides. So Facebook is giving you their impressions, their clicks, their reach. And naturally, this industry became very channel centric. The system has been perpetuated because brands themselves are internally structured largely in this way. So companies' marketing teams, they're broken up into their social team. You have your organic team, you have your influencer team. So the whole system has really been built around almost like triaging these channels, and then the infrastructure basically stuck. What that has caused is a really kind of dysfunctional incentive structure has grown out of this system. So everyone from the internal teams to the media agencies to the publishers themselves, because of this system, everyone's basically angling to make their channel look like the hero. And nobody has an incentive to look at everything in a collective manner. So the channel and the agencies are all trying to prove that their platform performs best so that they can secure a bigger slice of the budget for the next quarter. And that's a very broken model for the brands and advertisers themselves. This is something that I saw firsthand when I was running the marketing analytics on the brand side. Every quarter, we had reps from these big social agencies come in and go through our quarterly results. And every channel said the same thing. You guys are spectacular. You perform so great. And at first, that's great to hear. You're like, wow, we're incredible. But after the second quarter, the third quarter, I started asking these people, hey, give us 3 things we could do to improve. And
Right.
the whole room went quiet. And I realized this whole thing is kind of more of a horse and pony show than a real business partnership. And
Right.
that's when it really hit me when I looked around the room. I realized our agency's here, our social team is here, the social publisher is here, and they all are incentivized to just tell us how great we are. So this just leads to people optimizing to get bigger budgets for their channels instead of focusing on getting higher sales for the brand.
Right.
And that's the real cost of this structure. So it's largely paid by the advertisers themselves. So when every channel is trying to prove its own success, nobody's role aside from potentially the CMO is to understand how the whole system works together.
Right.
And you lose that insight that tells you how your creative is driving your brand perception, how the messages translate to sales, or where to spend your next dollar effectively. So
Right.
instead of getting smarter with each campaign, it's just getting more and more fragmented. And that's kind of the great irony of the moment that we're in, is that we got more dashboards than ever, but less truth.
Right.
Marketing was supposed to become more measurable in the digital age, and it has, but in this siloed manner. And we've lost the plot completely, which is, how content connects, how stories spread, and how brands actually grow. So it's really the time to shift from measuring the medium to measuring the message. And that's what the content mix model is really designed to do, which is identify the real opportunities and understand how to make companies actually grow.
Right, right. I totally agree with you. So, in any organization, CMO are mostly in charge of handling these type of activities. And if you bring any change, like sometimes they are very reluctant to adopt that change. So, if you were to describe the shift to a CMO in one line, like how do you define what moving from channel first to content first really means in practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's right in the name. So in practice, it literally means shifting from a channel first to a content first approach where content is at the top of the pyramid and at the top of that hierarchy. So we begin with content measurement and content strategy, unlike conventional models that start with channel measurement and channel strategy. So the new structure reflects our core belief that channels do not drive sales, content does.
Right.
And by reordering the system, we've restored content to its rightful place, which is at the top. So what this means from an execution standpoint is that the content first approach starts with your brand goals. So, first asking, what are we actually trying to change? So, maybe one scenario is a brand is perceived as too expensive versus their competitors, or perhaps you have a new product launch and you need to reframe how your customers see you. So, we understand those brand goals and they tell us what belief or behavior that we need to shift so we can build a story that's designed to move that metric. The story then drives the creative, and the creative becomes the input to the distribution, not the other way around. So once we've identified the content we need and the audience, we then use machine learning to recommend where the content should go, what platforms, what format it should be in order to maximize both efficiency and effectiveness.
Yes, Lee, I totally agree with you. That's a great point you just put it. So, can you break down the data science a bit? Like, how does CMM use device graphs and machine learning to tie exposure to outcomes without cookies and fingerprinting?
Yes, so that's what's very exciting about the content mix model. So it's a patent pending data collection technology. It's officially filed as a completely novel system and method for content and creator based attribution and dynamic budget optimization using identity resolved graph data. So that is what our patent is filed under. In layman's terms, it's a new kind of data collection that ties, as mentioned, the creative exposure to real outcomes without cookies, fingerprinting, or channel bias. The way that it works is that we are working with trusted identity partners like TransUnion and LiveRamp, and they provide privacy safe device and identity graph data. That data helps us to understand anonymously how different devices and platforms connect to the same household or the same user. On top of that identity layer, we have a tracking system that assigns a unique ID to each piece of content. And where relevant, a creator ID. So instead of just measuring the media placements, we're measuring the actual creative assets and who made them in a unified manner across all channels.
Right.
Then the machine learning attribution engine takes over and it analyzes that exposure and conversion data across digital, traditional, and even physical environments. And then the model is able to learn what content and creators are statistically driving outcomes like sales, signups, or even your brand search.
It's a great thing, like the way you have implemented the machine learning algorithm and technology to streamline the MMM versus the CMM. That talks a lot. So, moving to the next section, that is the creative angle of it. So, creative leaders often fear that too much data kills creativity. So, how does CMM empower, not limit, and creative teams to take a smarter risk? How does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. So every single creative that enters the model is going to get that unique content ID. And what we also do is that we have a AI that analyzes the asset itself across a variety of criteria that have been proven to improve the efficacy of a creative. So things like pacing, if there's music, emotional cues, humor. So we're analyzing these creatives at scale across the exact same parameters.
Right.
That results in a content score, which is an effectiveness rating that will adjust based on how well it achieves your business outcomes. And what's really exciting here is that one of the components in this creative score is a novelty score. And that's something that I think really kind of speaks to what you're saying, where creative teams have been really almost inhibited by the data. And instead of like free flowing with novel ideas and what makes marketing so incredible and so memorable. And so
Right.
our system is actually grading these on novelty and how unique that asset is. So we can, in our briefs, we can go to the creatives and we say, the system spins it up and it'll say, we want something that's, highly unique and novel. That single message focus with music in the background, because that's what's going to resonate with this audience. So much of what we've experienced and, my 15 years of working in this space is when brands find something that works, they want to just keep repeating what works
Right.
over and over again. And
Right.
you're fishing from the same fishing hole. So much of what makes it work in the first place is that it was unique.
Right. Amazing. Ashley, you analyze performance at a story, segment, and talent level. What pattern have surprised you most? Is it the voice, the format, or maybe even the context that drives ROI?
Yeah. So the biggest element that I've seen from all of the variables that I've analyzed is the endorsements. So when you've got an endorser, I've been able to predict 97% accuracy in some cases, the sales just by looking at who the endorser is. So I think that because of the volume of content that people are exposed to, trust is one of the highest ways to get your brand and accelerate adoption of your brand through using the trust that these creators have developed with their audience.
Right. So yeah, actually, it's a great point. So before we go to the fire round chat, I would like to understand from you, like, what are the top brand that you think should start thinking about your product that you are building, and they should really look at your product and evaluate to see how they can start using it in their organization to enhance their marketing outreach in their campaign that they are running.
Yeah, absolutely. So the really exciting thing about the new CMM model and our SaaS product is it is so easy to stand up. It literally is the product of an updated tracking system and a data collection from the device graph. So it's super easy to stand up our system. Some of the challenges that I've heard from some of the largest brands in the US is the most simple, benign questions like, I'm paying $5 million for this sponsorship. I have no idea if this is working or not.
Right.
And there's many other examples. So brands today really seem to know that the measurement that they're using is not effective and it doesn't really show them an accurate picture. So,
Right.
if you're a brand that feels like that, then I believe that our solution is a good fit for you.
It's a really great conversation we had so far. So now the time has come for the fire chat round. So are you ready for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So one word that defines great content measurement in 2025.
Attainable. I think that up until this point, it has been something that nobody has been able to do at scale. And this year, with the content mix model, you can.
Yeah. The second question, if you could eliminate one outdated marketing matrix forever, what would it be?
And then
So creative or data, who wins the budget war in 2025?
if my system does what it's supposed to do, creative should be the winner. I say, like, we went from if they created Mad Men, the show Mad Men today, it would be called Math Men. And, marketing is really supposed to be about creativity, and data is just a supporting role in that.
Got it, got it. Oh, what's one signal every marketer is still ignoring, but they shouldn't?
I would say surveys are one of the most largely isolated metrics, and I believe that the most value sits there. We've created RML actually takes those surveys and translates them into business outcomes. So I think by increasing the utility, will increase the adoption of these brand surveys. But that's where the magic really is.
Right. The last question, if every CMO could fix one thing tomorrow, what it should be?
If I was a CMO of a Fortune 500 company today, I would restructure my teams around my products and services instead of my channels. And just by doing that alone, you are going to get significantly better outcomes.
Got it, got it. So if you look ahead 2 years, what does the future of content measurement look like?
Well, I think the future is here. So hopefully, it's a lot of what I just described throughout our conversation. I think the next element is definitely going to lie within the AI generated content. So I think that'll be a big focus in the next 2 to 5 years, AI generated content, and if that can be used to actually sell product.
Great, great. Ashley, this was fantastic. The context mix model clearly changes how brand thinks about creative performance, from reactive measurement to proactive optimization. For everyone listening, if you are still measuring where your ad run and not what actually worked, maybe it's time to flip the model. We will link Ashley work and the CMM framework in the description below. Until next time, stay curious and stay data driven. Thank you so much.